The small human transport ship drifted through space like a lost child among giants. Around it, the massive alien vessels looked like floating cities with their bright lights and curved metal hulls. The human ship was plain gray metal with simple engines that made soft humming sounds. Park Jahan stood at the window of his small cabin, watching the enormous space station grow larger as they approached. Galactic Council Station Omega-7 was bigger than any city on Earth. It spun slowly in the darkness, its lights twinkling like stars. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded it, each one looking more advanced than anything humans had ever built. Jihan was a quiet man in his 40s with graying hair and kind eyes. He wore a simple black suit that looked cheap compared to the fancy uniforms he had seen in the alien broadcasts. In his hands, he held a small, worn briefcase that he never let go of. When people asked what was inside, he always smiled and said it contained personal items from home. The docking process took 3 hours. The aliens made the human ship wait while bigger, more important vessels went first. Jihan did not complain. He sat in his cabin, reading reports and drinking tea from a thermos his wife had packed for him. He seemed completely calm, like a man, waiting for a bus rather than humanity's first diplomatic meeting with the galaxy. Captain Yoon Mirai watched from the bridge as alien security ships surrounded them. She was a young woman with sharp eyes who had served in Earth's military before joining the diplomatic mission. Something about those alien ships made her nervous, but she could not say what. "Sir," she said to Jihan over the communication system, "they want to search our ship before we dock." "Of course they do," Jihan replied in his soft voice. "Let them. We have nothing to hide." The alien search team was led by a tall reptilian creature with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. Admiral Vextar moved through the human ship like he owned it, his clawed hands touching everything. Behind him came smaller aliens with scanners and weapons. "Primitive," Vextar said in perfect English, his voice like gravel. "Look at this metal. Look at these simple controls. How did such a weak species even reach space?" His team laughed. They were all different types of aliens, but they all looked at the human ship with disgust. Some had insect-like faces with multiple eyes. Others were tall and thin with pale skin that seemed to glow. All of them carried weapons that looked far more advanced than anything humans had. Dr. Kim Dae-ho, the mission's scientist, tried to explain human technology to them. He was a nervous man who spoke too fast when he was worried. "Our ships may look simple, but they are very reliable. We focus on function over appearance." The aliens ignored him. They treated him like a child trying to explain how his toy worked. When they reached Jihan's cabin, Admiral Vexitar stopped. The human envoy sat at a small desk, still reading his reports. He looked up with a polite smile. "Admiral Vexitar, I presume," Jihan said, standing up slowly. "I am Park Jihan, Earth's diplomatic representative. Thank you for allowing us to visit your station." Vexitar stared at him for a long moment. This human was smaller than he expected, weaker looking. His clothes were plain and his manner was too polite, like someone who was afraid to speak loudly. "You are the best Earth could send?" Vexitar asked. "A small man in a cheap suit?" "I am what Earth chose to send," Jihan replied calmly. "I hope that will be enough." The alien admiral laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "We shall see, little human. We shall see." After the search, the human ship was allowed to dock at the smallest, most distant platform on the station. It was the kind of place reserved for cargo ships and unimportant visitors. The message was clear. Humans were not welcome here. Jihan walked through the station's corridors with his small diplomatic team. The ceilings were high and the walls were covered in symbols from a dozen different alien languages. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved through the halls, but they all stopped to stare at the humans. Some pointed and whispered. Others just laughed. The human delegation was given rooms in the oldest part of the station. The walls were gray metal, and the furniture was old and uncomfortable. Water dripped from the ceiling in one corner. It was clearly meant to be an insult. "This is unacceptable," Captain Mirai said quietly to Jihan. "They are treating us like prisoners." "They are testing us," Jihan replied, setting his briefcase carefully on the small table. "They want to see if we will complain, if we will demand better treatment, if we will show anger. And will we?" Jihan smiled that same polite smile. "No. We will be patient. We will be respectful. We will show them that humans can be civilized." That evening, there was a welcome ceremony in the station's great hall. Hundreds of alien dignitaries gathered to see the new species. The hall was enormous, with floating platforms and holographic displays showing the flags of 1,000 different worlds. Jihan and his team were seated at a small table far from the main stage. They were given simple food while the aliens ate, exotic dishes that glowed and moved on their plates. When Jihan was introduced, the applause was polite but brief. High Counselor Threnk spoke first. The insectoid leader's voice buzzed through translation devices as multiple eyes focused on the human delegation. "We welcome Earth to our community, though we wonder what such a young species can offer to our ancient civilizations." Ambassador Krillin, a being made of living crystal, added, "Perhaps they can provide raw materials or simple labor. Every civilization must find its place in the galactic order." The message was clear. Humans were expected to serve, not to lead. They were the newest and weakest members of this galactic community. Jihan listened to it all with the same calm expression. When asked to speak, he stood slowly and spoke in his quiet voice about Earth's hopes for peaceful cooperation. His words were simple and humble. He made no threats, no demands, no proud claims about human achievements. The aliens saw this as confirmation of what they already believed. Humans were weak. Their envoy was weak. They could be pushed around. As the ceremony ended, Admiral Vextar approached Jihan with several other military leaders. "Tomorrow we begin real negotiations, human. I suggest you prepare to be reasonable about Earth's position in our galaxy." "I am always reasonable, Admiral," Jihan replied softly. "That is why I am here." Vexatar smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. "Good. Very good." As the aliens walked away, Captain Mirai moved closer to Jihan. "Sir, they are planning something. I can feel it." Jihan nodded slowly, his eyes following the departing aliens. For just a moment, something cold flickered in his gaze. Then the polite smile returned. "Yes," he said quietly. "I believe they are." The council chamber was a massive round room with a dome ceiling that showed the stars outside. Floating platforms arranged in circles held the representatives of 47 different alien species. At the center sat a small table where Park. Jihan waited alone with his simple briefcase and a glass of water. Admiral Vextar paced around the central platform like a predator circling prey. His yellow eyes never left the human envoy as he spoke to the assembled delegates. "Look at this creature," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Earth sends us one small man in a cheap suit. Is this how a serious species conducts diplomacy?" Laughter rippled through the chamber. High Counselor Threnk's multiple eyes glittered with amusement, while Ambassador Krillin's crystal body flashed with what might have been alien humor. The other delegates whispered among themselves, pointing at Jihan with claws, tentacles, and appendages humans had no names for. Jihan sat quietly, his hands folded on the table. He had been waiting for 3 hours while the aliens talked about humanity, as if he was not there. They discussed Earth's resources, its location, and what role humans might play in their galactic order. Not once did they ask what humanity wanted. "The question before us today," Vextar continued, "is simple. Does Earth deserve a voice in galactic affairs, or should it accept its proper place as a servant species?" Dr. Kim Dae-ho shifted nervously, in his observer seat at the edge of the chamber. He wanted to object, to defend his species, but diplomatic protocol kept him silent. Captain Yoon Mireille watched from the security booth, her hand unconsciously moving toward her sidearm as tension filled the room. "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador Krillin, his crystal voice ringing like bells, "we should test this human's resolve, see if his species has any backbone at all." Jihan finally spoke, his voice so quiet the translation systems had to amplify it. "Honored delegates, I am here to discuss mutual cooperation between our species. Earth seeks friendship and trade, nothing more. Friendship?" Vextar laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "What could a primitive species like yours offer us as friends? Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your military is weak. Your planet has resources we can take whenever we choose." "Earth offers knowledge," Jihan replied calmly. "Cultural exchange, different perspectives that might benefit all of us." High Counselor Thrank's mandibles clicked with annoyance. "Different perspectives? You mean backward thinking from a species that only just learned to leave its own star system?" The insults continued for another hour. The aliens took turns explaining why humanity was inferior, why Earth's contribution to galactic civilization would be minimal, why humans should be grateful to serve their betters. Through it all, Jihan sat quietly, occasionally sipping his water, never raising his voice or showing anger. Admiral Vextar grew frustrated with the human's calm response. He had expected fear, anger, or desperate pleading. Instead, this small man just sat there with that polite smile, absorbing every insult as if it was a compliment. "I grow tired of this charade," Vextar announced suddenly. He stepped down from his platform and walked toward the center table. "Let us settle this matter properly." Other delegates leaned forward with interest. Several military representatives from different species moved closer, their weapons visible but not yet drawn. The chamber's atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. "Stand up, human," Vextar ordered when he reached Jihan's table. Jihan looked up at the reptilian admiral who towered over him by at least 2 feet. Slowly he stood, keeping his hands visible and his movements careful. "Is there a problem, Admiral?" "The problem," Vextar said, "is that you do not understand your place." Without warning, his clawed hand shot out and struck Jihan across the face. The sound echoed through the silent chamber like a gunshot. Jihan staggered but did not fall, blood trickling from his split lip. Captain Mirai shot to her feet in the security booth, but Dr. Dae-ho grabbed her arm. "We cannot interfere," he whispered urgently. "Diplomatic immunity does not protect us here." Jihan touched his lip with his fingers, looking at the blood. When he raised his eyes to meet Vextar's gaze, something had changed. The polite smile was gone. His eyes had become cold and calculating, like a scientist studying an interesting specimen. "That was unwise, Admiral," Jihan said quietly. Vextar laughed. "Unwise? What will you do, little human? Call for help? Threaten me with your primitive weapons?" 2 insectoid guards from Thrank's delegation moved to flank Jihan, their 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Ambassador Krillin floated closer, his crystal body pulsing with energy. The message was clear. The human was surrounded and helpless. "I think," Vextar continued, "it is time Earth learned its proper place in our galaxy." He struck Jihan again, harder this time. The human stumbled backward into the waiting arms of the insectoid guards. They held him upright while Vexatar delivered another blow to his stomach, doubling him over. The assembled delegates watched in silence. Some seemed uncomfortable with the display, but none moved to intervene. This was how the galactic order worked. The strong dominated the weak. The old civilizations ruled the new ones. Captain Mireille was speaking rapidly into her communication device, her face pale with shock and rage. Command, this is Mireille. The Envoy is under attack. I repeat, they are assaulting our diplomatic representative. Back. On Earth, General Huang Take received the transmission in his military command center. His face went white as he listened to the report. Around him, junior officers began activating emergency protocols, but the general just stared at the communication screen. "Sir?" asked his aide, Li Nari. "Should we prepare a rescue mission?" General Huang was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to laugh, though there was no humor in the sound. "A rescue mission? Oh, my dear Nari, you do not understand. We do not need to rescue Agent Storm." "Agent Storm, sir?" "That is not just any diplomat they are beating," the general said, his voice filled with dark amusement. "That is the ghost of Soul, the man we called Baba Yaga." Back in the council chamber, Vexatar was enjoying himself. He had struck the human several more times while the guards held him. Jihan's face was bloody and his expensive suit was torn, but he had not cried out or begged for mercy. "Now," Vextar announced to the chamber, "let us discuss Earth's real position in our galactic community. Your species will provide raw materials and labor. Your military will serve under our command. Your planet will accept our oversight in all matters." He grabbed Jihan's chin, forcing the human to look at him. "Do you understand, little man?" Jihan met his gaze steadily. When he spoke, his voice was still quiet, but something had changed in its tone. The politeness was gone, replaced by something cold and dangerous. "I understand perfectly, Admiral," he said. "You have just made the biggest mistake in galactic history." Vextar laughed. "What mistake? Teaching you your place?" Jihan smiled, but it was not the polite diplomatic smile from before. This smile was sharp and predatory, like a wolf showing its teeth. "You assaulted a diplomatic envoy," he said softly. "That was your first mistake. Your second mistake was thinking I came here alone." The lights in the chamber flickered once, then went out completely. The lights came back on after 30 seconds of complete darkness. In that brief time, everything had changed. The insectoid guards who had been holding Park Jihan were now unconscious on the floor. Admiral Vexatar was clutching his throat, gasping for air. And Jihan was gone. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Alien delegates shouted in dozens of languages while security forces poured through the entrances. High Counselor Threnk's multiple eyes darted around the room, searching for the missing human. Ambassador Krillin's crystal body flashed angry red colors. "Find him!" Vextar croaked, his voice damaged from whatever had happened during those dark 30 seconds. "Lock down the station! Search every room!" Captain Yunmire watched from the security booth as hundreds of alien guards flooded the corridors outside. Her communication device was buzzing with incoming messages from Earth, but she ignored them all. She had served under Jihan years ago before he became a diplomat. Back then, he had gone by a different name. Dr. Kim Daeho burst into the security booth, his face pale with fear. "Mireille, what happened? Where is the envoy? They are saying he attacked the council members." "He did not attack anyone," Mireille replied, calmly, still watching the chaos below. "He simply reminded them who they were dealing with." "What do you mean? He is just a diplomat." Mireille turned to look at the frightened scientist. "No, Daeho, he was never just a diplomat. That man down there is Agent Storm, the most dangerous human being who ever lived." Back on Earth, General Huang Tyke sat in his command center, listening to reports from the space station. Around him, military officers waited for orders to launch a rescue mission. But the general just smiled and poured himself a cup of tea. "Sir," said his aide, Li Nari, "should we not send ships to help the envoy?" "Help him?" General Huang laughed. "My dear Nari, let me tell you about the man you think needs help." He activated a holographic display showing classified military files. The image showed a younger Park Jihan in military uniform, but his eyes had the same cold intelligence they held today. 15 years ago, the Seoul cartel controlled half of Asia's black market. They had private armies, corrupt politicians, and enough firepower to fight a small war. We sent teams after them for months. Elite soldiers, special forces, intelligence operatives, all failed. The general sipped his tea slowly, enjoying the memory. So we sent him. One man. Agent Storm walked into their headquarters alone and unarmed. 3 days later, the entire organization was destroyed. Not defeated. Destroyed. And he walked out without a scratch. Linari stared at the file images. One man did all that? Oh, that was just the beginning, General Huang continued. The Siberian warlords thought they could challenge the Chinese government. Storm ended their rebellion in a week. The European crime syndicate tried to assassinate him in revenge. He sent them back their own assassins in boxes. More files appeared. On the display. Mission reports filled with details that seemed impossible. One man infiltrating enemy bases, dismantling entire criminal empires, ending conflicts that had lasted for years. But why do they call him Baba Yaga? Nari asked. General, Huang's smile grew wider. Because Baba Yaga is the creature you send to kill the boogeyman. And our agent Storm, he was the boogeyman's worst nightmare. Meanwhile, on the space station, the search for Jihan continued. Every corridor was filled with guards. Every room was checked and rechecked. Security sensors scanned for human life signs. But somehow, the missing envoy remained invisible. In the medical bay where they had taken him after the assault, the alien doctors found only empty restraints and unconscious guards. The security cameras showed nothing useful. One moment Jihan was there, the next he was gone. How does a primitive human disappear from a high-security facility? Admiral Vextar demanded. His throat was badly bruised and his voice came out as a painful whisper. Perhaps he had help, suggested High Counselor Thrank. Other humans on the station. We have accounted for all members of his delegation, replied the station's security chief, a massive creature with 6 arms and armor-plated skin. Dr. Kim Dae-ho and Captain Yoon Mirai are confined to their quarters under guard. The rest of his team never left their transport ship. Ambassador Krillin floated closer to the group. Then how do you explain this? He projected a holographic message that had appeared on every screen throughout the station. The words were simple and written in perfect galactic standard language. You made a mistake. Surrender now or face the consequences. Consequences. Vextar laughed, though it hurt his damaged throat. What consequences can one small human deliver? His answer came 30 minutes later when the station's main power grid flickered. Then the artificial gravity failed in the diplomatic quarter for exactly 60 seconds, long enough for several alien dignitaries to float helplessly in the air, but not long enough to cause real damage. The message was clear. Someone had complete access to the station's critical systems. Sir, reported a technician to the security chief, we found evidence of tampering in Maintenance Shaft 7. Someone with detailed knowledge of our systems has been moving through the infrastructure. How is that possible? No human has ever seen our technology before today. Captain Mirai, monitoring the communications from her confined quarters, smiled grimly. These aliens had no idea what they were dealing with. During the 3 days of diplomatic preparation before the meeting, Jihan had studied every technical manual, every blueprint, every system specification the aliens had provided. His mind could absorb and analyze information faster than their best computers, but that was not even his most dangerous skill. Dr. Dae-ho sat in his own locked room, finally beginning to understand. Mirai, he said through their private communication. Channel, what exactly did Agent Storm do during those wars you mentioned? He studied the enemy, she replied. Not just their weapons or their tactics. He studied their psychology, how they think, what they fear, how to make them defeat themselves. As if to prove her point, another message appeared on the station's screens. This one was different. It showed detailed psychological profiles of the three main alien leaders, complete with their personal fears, weaknesses, and guilty secrets. Admiral Vextar stared at his own profile in horror. It contained information that should have been impossible for any human to know. His failures in past battles, his secret deals with pirates, his fears about his own declining influence. How does he know these things? Vextar whispered. Hi. Counselor Thrank was reading her own profile, her multiple eyes wide with shock. The human had somehow learned about the hive mind's internal struggles, the growing rebellion among her own people, the secrets she kept even from her closest advisors. Ambassador Krillin's crystal body flickered with panic as he saw his own deepest shames displayed for all to see. Financial corruption, illegal deals, the truth about his species' supposed superiority. He has been watching us, Thrank realized, studying us. From the moment he arrived, he has been learning everything about us. The final message that appeared on the screens was the most terrifying of all. It was a simple countdown timer, starting at 72 hours and ticking down second by second. Below the timer was a single sentence. You have this long to apologize and renegotiate. After that, I stop being diplomatic. In his hidden location somewhere within the station's vast infrastructure, Park Ji-han sat quietly in the darkness. His diplomatic briefcase was open beside him, revealing equipment that looked nothing like the simple tools of peaceful negotiation. Advanced computers, communication devices, and other instruments that the aliens would not recognize. He was no longer the polite envoy who had arrived 3 days ago. The diplomatic mask had been removed, revealing the cold, calculating mind underneath. Agent Storm had awakened from his retirement, and the galaxy was about to learn why he had earned the name Baba Yaga. The hunt was about to begin. The countdown timer had reached 60 hours when the real terror began. Admiral Vextar was in his private quarters, surrounded by his best guards, when the lights went out. In the darkness, he heard a sound like wind moving through metal corridors. When the lights returned, 2 of his guards were unconscious on the floor. There was no sign of the human, no evidence of how he had entered or left. Just a small note on Vextar's pillow that read, I could have killed you just now. Remember that! The Admiral's hands shook as he called for more guards. His yellow eyes darted to every shadow, every corner where an enemy might hide. But Agent Storm was like smoke. He appeared and disappeared without warning, leaving only fear behind. High Counselor Thrank fared no better. Her private communication network, which connected her to thousands of hive mind drones across the galaxy, suddenly went silent. For an insectoid leader who had never been alone in her thoughts, the isolation was terrifying. When the connection returned an hour later, she found that every drone had received the same message. Your queen is not as powerful as she pretends. The hive mind's faith in their leader began to crack. Doubt spread through their collective consciousness like poison. Thrank could feel her authority slipping away with each passing hour. Ambassador Krillin tried to lock himself in the most secure room on the station. The crystalline being surrounded himself with energy shields and automated defenses. It did not matter. When he woke from his meditation cycle, he found his personal financial records scattered around the room. Every illegal transaction, every corrupt deal, every crime he had committed was laid out in perfect detail. Attached was a note. Should I send these to the Galactic Ethics Committee, or would you prefer to explain them yourself? The 3 alien leaders gathered in the council chamber, surrounded by hundreds of guards from a dozen different species. Commander Ryu Jinwoo, Vextar's most trusted military officer, had positioned troops at every entrance. Security scanners swept the room continuously. Motion detectors covered every inch of space. He is just one human, Vextar said, though his voice lacked conviction. How can one primitive creature terrorize an entire space station? Perhaps, suggested Thrank, we should consider his demands, apologize for the assault, renegotiate as equals. Never! Vextar roared, then winced as the sound hurt his damaged throat. We do not bow to inferior species. We are the masters of this galaxy. As if summoned by his words, the chamber's main screen activated. It showed a live feed from the station's main computer core, deep in the most secure section of the facility. Agent Storm sat calmly in front of the massive quantum computers, typing on a portable keyboard. He looked directly into the camera and spoke in his quiet, polite voice. Good evening, honored delegates. I hope you are enjoying our extended negotiations. Impossible, Commander Ryu shouted. That area is sealed. No one can access it without authorization codes. On the screen, Agent Storm held up a small device. I have been studying your systems for 3 days. Your security is impressive, but it was designed to keep out armies, not individuals. You never considered that someone might simply walk through your defenses instead of trying to break them. The camera angle shifted to show the computer core around him. Critical systems that controlled life support, artificial gravity, and station navigation were all within his reach. The aliens realized with growing horror that he could kill them all with a few keystrokes. What do you want? Vextar demanded. I want what I came here for, Agent Storm replied. Respectful negotiations between equals, an apology for the assault on a diplomatic envoy, and a formal treaty that recognizes Earth's sovereignty. And if we refuse? Agent Storm's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Then you will learn why my people call me Baba Yaga. The screen went dark. For several minutes, nothing happened. The alien leaders began to hope that perhaps the human was bluffing. Perhaps he was not as dangerous as he seemed. Then the screaming started. It began in the outer corridors, where Vexitar's patrol teams had been searching for the missing human. One by one, the security teams stopped reporting in. When backup units were sent to investigate, they found the guards unconscious but alive, with no memory of what had happened to them. He is picking off our forces one by one, Commander Ryu reported, his 6 arms gesturing frantically at tactical displays. My best soldiers, creatures trained for war across 100 worlds, and he takes them down without making a sound. The psychological warfare continued throughout the night cycle. Lights would flicker in specific patterns, spelling out messages in ancient Earth languages that the translation computers could not decode. Personal items belonging to the alien leaders appeared in impossible locations. Food supplies in the diplomatic quarter were replaced with Earth rations and a note, courtesy of humanity. But the most terrifying incident happened to High Counselor Thrank. She woke to find her private quarters filled with earth flowers, hundreds of them, arranged in perfect patterns around her sleeping chamber. The fragrance was overwhelming, and the sight was beautiful, but the message was clear. He could reach anyone, anywhere, at any time. Captain Yun Mirai, still confined to her quarters but monitoring all communications, smiled as she listened to the growing panic among the alien forces. She remembered Agent Storm's techniques from their military days together. He was not just attacking their defenses, he was attacking their minds. He is making them afraid of shadows, she explained to Dr. Deho through their communication link. Every time they think they are safe, he proves they are not. Fear is more powerful than any weapon. Tech specialist Cho Yuna, working from Earth's command center, had been tracking the situation through hidden communication channels. She watched, in amazement, as Agent Storm turned the aliens' advanced technology against them. General, she reported to Huang Taik, he has complete control of their station systems. He could have killed them all hours ago, but he is choosing not to. Why? Because death would end their fear, the general replied. Agent Storm wants them to understand their mistake. He wants them to remember this lesson for the rest of their lives. The countdown timer reached 12 hours. Throughout the station, alien forces huddled in groups, afraid to patrol alone. The three leaders had not slept in 2 days. Every sound, every shadow, every flicker of light made them jump with terror. Ambassador Krillin was the first to break. "We must surrender," he announced during an emergency meeting. "This human is not normal. He is something else. Something we do not understand." "He is just using primitive psychological tricks," Vextar insisted, but his voice shook with exhaustion and fear. "Then explain how he knew about my private dealings," Krillin shot back. "Explain how he accessed secured computer systems. Explain how he moves through our defenses like they do not exist." High Counselor Thrank's multiple eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep. Perhaps Krillin is right. Perhaps we underestimated this species. The timer reached 6 hours, then 3, then 1. As the final minutes ticked away, the three alien leaders found themselves back in the council chamber where this had all started. They were surrounded by every guard they could gather, but none of them felt safe. The room was silent except for the sound of the countdown reaching its final seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The lights went out. In the darkness, they heard footsteps. Slow, measured, deliberate. When the lights returned, Agent Storm was standing at the center table where he had been assaulted. His diplomatic briefcase was beside him, and he wore a fresh suit identical to the one that had been torn during the attack. But his eyes were no longer those of a polite diplomat. They were the eyes of a predator who had finished playing with his prey. "Time is up," he said quietly. "Now we do this the hard way." Agent Storm stood in the center of the council chamber like a statue carved from ice. Around him, hundreds of alien guards kept their weapons trained on his position, but none of them dared to move. The three leaders who had assaulted him sat at their platforms, no longer looking like masters of the galaxy. They looked like prey animals waiting for the predator to strike. "You had 72 hours to make the right choice," Storm said in his quiet voice. "You chose pride over wisdom, violence over diplomacy. Now you will learn what humanity is capable of when we stop being polite." Admiral Vextar tried to project authority despite his fear. "You are outnumbered 1,000 to 1, human. Surrender. Now and we might show mercy." Storm smiled, that cold predator smile. "Outnumbered? Admiral, you still do not understand." He raised his hand and snapped his fingers once. The space outside the station's massive windows exploded with light. Dozens of human warships appeared as if they had materialized from nothing. Sleek, dark vessels that had been invisible to all. Alien sensors suddenly revealed themselves in perfect formation around the station. The alien delegates gasped in shock and terror. These were not the primitive ships they had expected. These vessels were clearly advanced, bristling with weapons, and technology that looked disturbingly familiar. "Impossible," whispered High Counselor Thrank. "Our sensors showed nothing. How long have they been there?" "Since before I arrived," Storm replied calmly. "Did you really think Earth would send its most valuable diplomat into enemy territory without protection? Every move you made, every word you spoke, every plan you hatched has been monitored by my people." Commander Ryu Jinwoo was staring at his tactical displays in disbelief. "Sir, those ships are using our own stealth technology that should be impossible for humans to possess." Storm opened his briefcase and pulled out a small device that projected holographic images into the air. The images showed alien technology being studied in human laboratories, alien computer systems being analyzed by human scientists, alien military tactics being practiced by human soldiers. For 3 days, while you treated me like a primitive, savage, I was learning, Storm explained. Every system on this station, every piece of technology you so proudly showed off, every weakness in your defenses. My people have been studying galactic civilization for months, preparing for this moment. Elder, Prime Zenda, the ancient neutral arbiter of the Galactic Council, finally spoke from her position at the highest platform. Her voice was old and wise, filled with centuries of experience. "I warned them," she said sadly. "I told them not to underestimate the newcomers, but they would not listen." Storm looked up at the ancient being with respect. "Elder Prime, you are known throughout the galaxy for your wisdom and fairness. I hold no anger toward you or the neutral delegates. My quarrel is with those who chose violence over words." Zenda floated down from her platform on graceful energy wings. She was tall and ethereal, with skin that seemed to glow with inner light. "Young human, I have lived for over 2,000 years. I have seen the rise and fall of 100 civilizations, but I have never seen anything like what you have accomplished in just 3 days. I am not unique among my species, Elder Prime," Storm replied. "I am simply what humans become when we are threatened. We adapt. We learn. We overcome." The holographic display changed to show images from Earth's history. Human warriors from different eras, different cultures, all united by the same determination to protect their people. Ancient soldiers, modern commandos, space marines, and intelligence operatives like Storm himself. "You made 2 critical errors," Storm continued, addressing the 3 alien leaders. "First, you assumed that because our technology appeared primitive, we were primitive. Second, you believed that because I came in peace, I was weak." Admiral Vextar was studying the human warships through the windows. "Those vessels, they are using our own weapons against us. How did you steal our technology?" "We did not steal it," Storm corrected. "You gave it to us. Every technical manual you provided for the diplomatic mission. Every system specification you shared to show off your superiority. Every piece of information you thought was harmless. My people studied it all and improved upon it." Ambassador Krillin's crystal body was flickering with confused colors. "Improved upon it? That is impossible. Our technology has been perfected over thousands of years." "Your technology has been stagnant for thousands of years," Storm replied. "You became comfortable with your superiority. You stopped innovating. Humans have been fighting and improving for our entire existence. Give us something to study and we will make it better within weeks." The holographic display showed human engineers working with captured alien technology, making modifications and improvements that the original designers had never considered. Weapons became more efficient. Shields became stronger. Engines became faster. "This is why you should have treated us as equals from the beginning," Storm said. "Humanity does not want to conquer the galaxy. We want to contribute to it. But if you force us to fight, you will discover that we are very good at fighting." Elder Prime Zenda moved closer to the 3 trembling leaders. "You have a choice now, the same choice you should have made days ago. Will you negotiate in good faith, or will you force this remarkable species to demonstrate more of their capabilities?" High Counselor Thrank was the first to break. Her multiple eyes filled with what might have been tears. I apologize. The assault on your envoy was wrong, inexcusable. We were blinded by our arrogance. Ambassador Krillin's crystal form had turned a deep blue color that Storm's briefing materials had identified as shame. "We treated you as primitives when we were the ones acting primitive. Violence has no place in diplomatic relations." Admiral Vextar remained defiant for a few more seconds, then his shoulders sagged in defeat. "I apologize as well. My actions were those of a barbarian, not a civilized being." Storm nodded slowly. "Apologies are a beginning, but words alone are not enough. You must prove that you understand what you have learned." At his signal, the human warships outside began to withdraw, fading back into invisibility. But everyone in the chamber knew they were still there, still watching, still ready to act if needed. Ambassador Oh Seo-jin arrived with the main diplomatic fleet, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle manner that was completely different from Storm's cold efficiency. She carried new treaty documents and proposals for genuine cooperation between humanity and the galactic community. As the formal negotiations began, Storm quietly gathered his belongings. His work here was done. The galaxy now understood that humanity was not to be underestimated or abused. Elder Prime Zenda approached him as he prepared to leave. "Agent Storm, your methods were dramatic. But perhaps drama was what was needed. These species had grown too comfortable with their power. Sometimes, Elder Prime, the only way to teach respect is to demonstrate consequences," Storm replied. "I hope it will not be necessary again." "What will you do now?" she asked. Storm smiled, and for the first time in days it was a genuine, warm expression. "I will go home to my wife and garden. Let others handle the talking from here. I am much better at the other kind of diplomacy." As his transport ship departed the station, whispered stories began to spread throughout the galaxy. Stories of the human envoy who had single-handedly terrorized the most powerful space station in known space. Stories of the species that appeared, weak but proved to be incredibly dangerous when threatened. The name Baba Yaga entered galactic folklore, spoken in hushed tones by creatures who had never even seen a human. It became a warning passed down through generations. Never underestimate the species from the small blue planet because they are far more dangerous than they appear. Park Jihan returned to his quiet apartment on Earth, hanging his diplomatic credentials next to old military commendations that few people were cleared to see. The galaxy now knew humanity's place in the cosmic order, not as servants or masters, but as equals who demanded respect. And if that respect was ever forgotten, they knew that somewhere on the third planet, from an unremarkable star, the Baba Yaga was waiting.